Okay, so today we're going to have a mini lesson on 3.7D. By the end of this class, well, the objective of this class is that you will be able to determine the appropriate way to measure liquids or weight and mass. Okay, that is your objective. By the end of this class, you are supposed to, given 4 scenarios, you'll have to actually choose either it's a capacity problem, meaning measuring with liquids, or a weight problem, measuring mass. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Very good. So, let's first start this little mini lesson with a couple of words that I want you to think of. One is capacity, and the other words are weight or mass. Please turn around and talk to the person that is beside you. What do you think is capacity? And what do you know it's weight and mass? What do you know? What do you remember?
Como los que, ¿te acuerdas de los para medir cuánto pesa We are listening.
Very good. So I would like to hear from a couple of you. What are your ideas of what is capacity and what is weight or mass? So I'm going to start here, and then we'll go to a boy. Yes.
We talked about capacity, that it's the type of weight on types of liquids.
Okay, so you think capacity is related to liquids. Okay. What do you think it's capacity or weight?
Weight es como cuánto pesa algo.
Okay. Do anyone remember that we learned this in science?
Yes.
Did we learn this in science?
Yes.
Yes. We talk about science and weight, right? It's like
Capacity
almost the
is
same thing.
good for science because if you want to do like an experiment with science, you can measure the water.
Okay, so yes, we can actually measure the water in science. Very good. Yes, Jerry.
Yo le dije a mi pareja de la acá como de capacity y usted se acuerda que dijo una gallon y cuánto y la masa y weight es la masa que pesa algo.
Very good. So yes, that is completely true. So let me elaborate a little bit more on these 2 important words. So I'm going to explain first what's capacity. Capacity, it's something that actually you're trying to measure what can be contained inside of something. What is the volume of something? So capacity is related to containing inside of a container or the volume of something. That means how much is inside.
Like
Do you understand?
How does a gallon weigh?
So how much a gallon can hold, you know, not weight, because weight will be mass. So let me explain. Let me show you something that I have right here for you, and I'm gonna show you a little example. So look at this. This is a container. It's not a gallon. Actually, it's a half of a gallon. A gallon is a little
Un
bit
gallon
bigger.
es cuando está como una
Half gallons.
Yeah.
Maestro, hasta en los milk, si miras te dice G,
One
dice
gallon.
un gallon.
Very good. Excellent. Excellent. Remember that I show you some of those?
I saw of chocolate.
Okay. So go ahead. So here, so this is a container, and this is actually a very good tool to measure capacity, to measure volume. Do you understand what I'm trying to do with this?
Yes.
So, for example, I can measure with this amount of water. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
Can I measure with this amount of liquids?
Yes.
What about juice?
Yes.
Somebody got an idea other than the ones that I provided? What else can I measure here?
Milk.
Milk, yes.
Water.
Water, excellent.
Pintura.
Paint, yes. If it's liquid, right? I can put some liquid paint here. Yes. What else can I place here?
But the liquid is
Sanitizer.
It's okay. Yeah. What else?
Glue.
Glue. Yeah. I could measure here. Glue.
because
Yes.
the bottle.
Yeah.
Sanitizer.
Sanitizer. Yes, I could measure here sanitizer. So all of those are things that will fit inside
But
of
what
this
happens if you put
container.
something else except of
But no,
liquid?
yes. If it's liquid cream, yes, right? If we want
Como
to
crema
pour
para
it's like liquid, yes. No, yes.
No, no, pero es que yo pensaba que sopa.
That's okay, Tony. What? Come on.
Es que como el queso es de polvito, lo podemos meter ahí, puede pegar a la leña también.
Oh,
Pero
so
dicen que
powder
no.
stuff. You know, I really like your idea, Tony. I really like your idea. Do you? So I got a question now. Now that Tony said that, I'm just wondering. And don't say your answer. Just think about it for 5 seconds before you say something. Do you think I could measure here powder cheese or sand? Or what about if I want to measure here salt? Or could I measure here flour? What do you think? Don't say. Think 5 seconds. Now tell the person on the side what are your thoughts on that? Can I measure those things here? That's fine.
Como que se puede meter con las cosas duras no se pueden meter porque se puede meter bien y no se puede como el queso la arena. Pero qué tal si es un queso más grandecito así que esté como pero qué tal uno que tiene la fuerza puedes despedazar una forma qué tal si tienes
We are listening.
So, what are your thoughts? I want to hear from you, Joseph. What are your thoughts? What, you can measure things like that. What things did you discuss you can actually measure inside of this container? That this measures volume, by the way. This is volume. So, what things did you discuss? We'll have your partner, Alondra?
I said yes because let's say that you're making a cake and you need the measurement of flour and you could use the cup where it says like 100 grams and like that, so then you can measure it.
So you can measure inside of this thing? Okay, so but it would be grams. It would be a volume, but you can actually measure it here, right? Okay, what are your thoughts, Tony?
Dice Reina que sí podemos poner queso inside because it's so like
It's small particles that will fit in here. That's what you're trying to say.
like
Yes. I want to hear someone different. Jerry, I haven't heard you today.
actually
Let's
Pero yo y mi pareja, yo te estaba diciendo unas cosas que no, pero yo pienso que sí, porque a veces están muy pequeñitas, pero yo estaba diciendo otras ideas como, ¿qué tal si un pedazo muy grande de queso se puede meter o son te lo puedes?
Okay, so I agree. There are certain things that actually I can measure here, for example, salt, or I can measure here sugar. But there are some things that are bigger that will make sense, right? Is that what you're saying?
Maestro, pero mamá tiene como queso que se despedaza, pero sí se puede meter a veces tienen bolitas, pero eso cambiará la measure o cuando está pequeñito, pues será lo mismo.
You know, I agree with her. There are some things that are ideal to measure here and some things that are not so ideal. Do you understand what she's saying? But can I do it? The answer probably is yes, I can do it. There are some things that I can put in here and I can still measure even though they are not liquids. So that is true. And I'm going to elaborate this on another lesson because I want to make the difference between fluid ounces and ounces. But I'll talk to you about that later. Now, I have a question. If you want to measure Mr. Rodriguez, look at me. Do you think this is going to help you to measure me?
No puede caber más.
So, would I be measured by capacity or I would be best measured by weight and mass? Weight and mass. So you remember the scales, right?
Yes.
So I step on top of the scale and it's going to tell me my weight. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Now there are some scales that will be appropriate to weigh me. And there are some scales that will be appropriate to weight something very tiny and very light. You remember the electronic scale that I borrowed to actually show you during the science experiments? Remember that? And we were able to actually measure the weight of some paper clips. Remember that?
Yes.
Do you think that's appropriate to measure my weight? No. If I stand up that scale, probably I will break it. But there are some scales appropriate to measure my weight, and some scales appropriate to measure something else. So let me just go back to something. So we understand that this is actually volume. Volume is what's inside of a container that is defined by a space. Do we understand that?
Yes.
We're talking about what's inside, the space defined in a container. That's volume. Now, when I talk about weight and mass, we're talking about, of course, the attraction of the planet towards something and how it's pulled
Like
to the planet. Does that make sense to you? What we discussed in science, remember that?
And the gravity.
The gravity has a lot to do with that. Yes, very good. So, I have a question now. If you look at my pictures, I'm gonna ask you please to refer to the picture that is with the letter B. It's the second one. You see it?
Yes.
Now, you're just gonna say, do you think it's capacity or weight? The one that I would use. Capacity.
Capacity.
Now, everybody at once, please tell me, what would you use to actually measure picture number 8?
Weight and
Weight and mass?
No, porque si usas capacity no pueden caber en
But how are you
las
gonna measure it? With weight and mass?
Well, actually, let me tell you something. That is interesting. Even though you might think, yes, weight and mass will make sense, but how would you measure it, right? Well, believe it or not, as I show you that there are scales for little things, like the one that I use for science that I borrowed from somebody else, for measuring the weight of actually buses and 18-wheelers, you know what an 18-wheeler is?
No.
There are some like huge scales to measure the weight of those things.
Wow.
There are some huge scales that actually they have in special places to measure the weight of those vehicles. So yes, I agree with you, it will be weight and mass. And yes, it's a huge scale, but there are some that are used for that. Yes, Jerry.
Y yo ya sé por qué no se pueden meter en capacity.
Why?
Porque cuando el autobús está muy grande, ¿verdad? No se puede meter o ni lo puedes hacer como pedacitos así, se necesita una scale.
I'm gonna
¿Qué pasa si
I'm gonna
se
say
hunde
something
el-
to you, Jerry.
el
Let me tell you
school
something.
bus?
Let me tell you something. That I will have to say that there's a difference between ideal, like what I think that should happen, the way that I would do it, and the other thing is not possible. For example, if I take stones, like little stones, do you think it's ideal to measure them by volume?
No.
But can I do it?
Yes.
Yes, I can actually place them here and see how much, but it's not ideal, right? The same with the school bus. So, even if you think that is, how are you going to actually measure how much in a container? There are some ways to actually measure the volume of a school bus, but for these purposes, the ideal thing to use to measure it will be weight and mass. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
So yes, I don't want to give you like the wrong idea, but yes, it's ideal to do it by weight and mass. Now I have a question. Look at please at image number 6. Look at my image number 6. Yes.
Corn?
Now,
Corn
yeah,
cob.
it's a corn. Yes. So, what would you use to measure that vegetable? What would you use? Weight or capacity?
Capacity.
Weight or capacity?
Capacity.
Okay, who says capacity? Who says weight? Now, explain me, why do you think weight?
Okay. ¿Por qué no pueden meter el lote ahí?
Okay, because it's not ideal to put the corn inside of this thing, right? The way it is.
Pero el meter estos así.
Pero
Yeah,
dice
but no, but
corn,
this is the
pero
way
no
it is.
dice los pieces del corn,
Ajá.
dice el entire corn.
Yeah, so we will have to actually rip it apart.
Si pones
Wait. Let me hear somebody else. What do you think? Yes.
Que como es, como tiene bolitas así, le puedes quitar la bola y lo metes.
I agree. If we actually
Taking
like
the corn
put it
off the
apart, you can put it here, but the center still you cannot put it here, right? So will it be ideal?